Hi, and welcome to the first workshop for the academic semester. It's called Rev Up For Fall. It's hosted by the Student Success Center, and it will be presented by Megan Grondin. My name is Alika, and I am the Associate Director of Student Success. And on my team, we have Morgan, one of our peer tutors, and Teresa, she is the coordinator of Student Success. And our department is really here to support you on your academic journey here at the Kings. And so a quick snapshot of what we provide is peer tutoring. We have academic coaching, which is really to help you with your study skills, your learning style, time management, things of that nature. We provide services for international students, for students that need ADA accommodation, so that would be disability services, as well as our student population needing assistance with academic probation or watch. And then we do provide academic advising for the first 2-year undergraduate student. However, all of our services for academic support is for all students on ground and online. So we will have several workshops throughout the semester that again will be either recorded Zoom or it'll be recorded live on ground for all of our students to engage and watch and be a part of it. So now I'm going to go ahead and let this hop over to Megan, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about how to prepare for the fall semester and set our intentions. Thank you again for joining us.
Kind of crazy right now. It's a crazy time to start a new adventure like this, but we're confident that the Lord is with you and He's got really great things in store for you. And we're excited to partner with you in what the Lord is calling you to do here at TKU and in your future ministry as well. So we're really excited to have you here. Like Alka said, my name is Megan Grondin. I am the Registrar and Director of Academic Services at TKU. I also teach student success strategies online. So you may be in my class online already. So if you have, I'm excited to meet you face to face. This is kind of a sneak peek of some of the things that we're going to talk about in this class as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so my mom used to tell me when I was growing up, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Now, I am a planner at heart. I love schedules and paper planners. I just like to go into the store and look at planners. It just kind of makes me happy to see all of those things. I like to plan trips just for the fun of it, even if I never go on it. I just like the planning process. And you may be like me, you may love to plan, or you may not be. Maybe you're more spontaneous and go with the flow. My husband is a lot like that. So he's a good balance for me. And both things are important to have in life. But for school, spontaneity is really not a surefire way to get good grades and to do well in your classes. So planning can come really naturally to some people, but it can also be something that's kind of unnatural for a lot of people. However, that doesn't mean that you can't become a good planner. You can't learn how to plan. It is a skill that you can develop and grow into. So today we're going to talk about how to plan for a successful semester. And there's 3 steps that we're going to kind of talk through, a process that you can go through to successfully plan for the semester. So the first step is identify your priorities, and then set goals, and then schedule time to align with those goals. Okay, so we're going to walk through each of those things today. So the first one, let's talk about identifying priorities first. So have you ever said, give me a thumbs up, have you ever said, I just don't have enough time? Has anybody ever said that? I've said that for sure. Many, many times. I just don't have enough time to do this, or, you know, whatever. But the truth is, everyone has 24 hours in a day. You have 24 hours, your neighbor has 24 hours, your coworker, your boss, the president of the United States, the Queen of England, everybody has 24 hours in a day. The reality is, when you say, I don't have enough time, what you're saying is you have other priorities. So if you don't go to church, or you can't go to church because you don't have time, there's a higher priority than church. Or if you don't have time to get your homework done, then this means you have other priorities. And how you spend your time reflects what you prioritize in life. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of an illustration. Some of you may have heard this example. This is a pretty popular story. But there's this story about big rocks. So a professor comes into his classroom and he's got this jar full of big rocks. And he asks the whole class, is this jar full? What do you guys think? If it's full, give me a thumbs up. You think it's full? Anybody? Yes? No. Some people say yes, some people say no. Okay. So the class said the same thing. Is it full? And then the professor proceeds then to pour in some pebbles into that jar to fill in the spaces around those big rocks. And so the professor asked at that point again, well, is the jar full? And some of the class said, probably not. And the professor said, yep, you're right. It's not quite full yet. So he proceeds to pour in some sand into that jar and then asked if it's full. And that's pretty much as full as it's going to get. You could also pour some water in there and make it even fuller and fill it to the brim. And so at the end, there was the realization that this jar could hold a lot more than anticipated. But if you put in the sand first and then the pebbles, you wouldn't have any space for the big rocks, right? So it's all about the order in which you fill up the jar. And it's the same with your time. It's the same with your life. Your life and your time, your schedule is like this jar. And if you don't put in your big rocks first, you are not going to be able to have the time necessary to do what's most important in your life. So the first step in figuring out how to create a successful plan, it's to identify what are my big rocks. So go ahead and put in the chat, what are some of the big rocks in your life? Alka, I don't know if I can see the chat. So if you can kind of read out what people write in, put in the chat, what are some of the big rocks that you have in your life? What are some of the priorities that you have? Or that maybe as you are coming into TKU, you realize you're going to have some maybe new priorities.
Family, time for God, our spiritual health, time with the Holy Spirit, health, yeah, work, family, homework, yes, school, mental bandwidth at work, absolutely.
Definitely.
Meals, yeah, ministry work, classes.
Food, I appreciate that one. You got to schedule in those meal times. Yes, those are all great. And those are awesome priorities. So once you've identified those big rocks, those priorities, those are the things that need to go into your plan first. Those are the things that you want to build your life around. So think about those priorities. And if you have that worksheet open, go ahead and write down some of those things that you've identified. What are your big rocks? So for me, like many of you said, it's my relationship with the Lord. That is my first priority. After that, it's my marriage, it's my health, and then work and ministry, church ministry. And if you're becoming a TKU student, you are saying, you're making a commitment that your studies are a priority. You are investing time and energy and money and all of those things into your studies. So those will need to become a big priority in your life. So if you're not setting aside time for those priorities, they're not going to magically, appear and happen in your life. You have to dedicate time to them. So that's the first step, identifying priorities. How do you make sure that these priorities show themselves to be priorities on your calendar, because there's often a disconnect, right? Between, I know this is a priority, but somehow in reality, it doesn't always match up, right? I don't know if I'm the only one that struggles with that. But that often happens to me. There's a mismatch, right? So it's important to figure out how to put those priorities into action. And the way that you put priorities into action is to set goals, okay? Goals are your priorities in action. Priorities are usually general ideas, right? My relationship with the Lord, my health. Goals are your priorities in action. So my goal is to have a daily time with the Lord every day. That's a goal. Or to exercise, 3 times a week. That's a goal. It's your priorities in action. Studies have shown that students who set academic goals are more likely to achieve academic success. So this is not just a good idea. There's actually research built behind this. Setting goals is all about putting your desires and your hopes and your dreams into action. And it really causes us to reflect on what we truly want, what really matters to us, and what we are willing to do to get there. So setting goals helps you to stay focused as well on achieving success, and it keeps you motivated also when things get tough, right? Because goals don't just happen magically. They take a lot of hard work, but keeping that end in mind helps you to stay focused. So how do you set goals? So my recommendation is to start with 2 or 3 short-term goals for the semester, and then 1 long-term goal for the year. Okay, so both long-term and short-term goals are needed to be successful. Long-term goals give you a big picture to work towards, and short-term goals help you to make steps towards those long-term goals. Okay, so some of you may have a long-term goal of achieving a 4.0 GPA when you graduate. I don't know if any of you already have that in mind. I want to graduate with 4.0. A lot of students say that, which is a great goal to have. But that's not going to magically happen, right? You have to figure out a strategy to get you to achieve that long-term goal. And the way to do that is to set some short-term goals. So some short-term goals could be earn a 90% or higher on practice quizzes when you study, or earn an A on your first test, or meet with the professor and identify a topic for your research paper, or ask a librarian for help for locating some sources, or write a first draft and go to the Student Success Center and get it reviewed by a campus tutor and have them help you and give you some feedback on your writing. So these are some goals that you can set for yourself, some short-term goals to help you to get to that long-term goal of a 4.0 GPA, okay? So think about long-term goals. If you have one in mind right now, go ahead and write that down. And maybe it's a 4.0 GPA. Maybe it's just finish school. And that is a totally acceptable, awesome goal to have. If you're here and you're like, I just want to finish, great. And you can still do that successfully, and you're still going to need to set some short-term goals along the way. So go ahead and write some of those down. Maybe for this semester, you're thinking about, what kind of short-term goals you need to have right now in your first semester to get started off on the right foot. All right, so now let's talk about some characteristics of goals and some principles to keep in mind when you're setting goals. So this is called the ABCs of effective goal setting. Okay, so the first principle is aim high. Challenging goals are best. The more challenging your goal, the better, even if you don't reach it. I think it's great to set some long-term goals that are challenging. And it's also important to set some short-term goals for yourself that will motivate you when you achieve them and help you to build the skills necessary to achieve more challenging goals. Okay, so let me give you a real life example to kind of give you a picture of how this works. Okay, so I like to do on occasion strength training, right? Lifting weights. I don't know if anybody else enjoys doing that. So when you lift weights, you want to lift heavy enough to make it challenging, but not so heavy that it's totally impossible. You want to be able to build up and continue to strengthen your muscles to help you to progress to more and more challenging goals. But you also don't want to lift too light, because then you're not going to build the necessary muscle to give you the strength to go on to heavier weights, right? So you want to keep that in mind as you're setting your goals. You want something that's going to be challenging for you. And don't think about what other people are, what might be challenging for someone else may not be challenging for you. And what may be challenging for you may not be challenging for someone else. So getting an A, for example, on your midterm may be a huge challenge for you, and it may not be for someone else. But you have to keep in mind what's challenging for you. You don't want to compare yourself to others, because that is not going to help you at all. So you want to figure out what's challenging for you and to push yourself to achieve something that's maybe bigger than you thought possible. All right, the second one, so that's A, aim high. The second one is B, believe in yourself. Self-efficacy is key. Okay, now this kind of sounds like a cheesy Disney movie, right? Just believe in yourself, you can do it, right? But there's actually some science behind this idea of believing in yourself, and it's called self-efficacy, okay? So do you ever wonder why toddlers, they always want to just do it themselves? We have parents on the webinar, but toddlers are like, I just want to do it, even if they can't tie their shoes yet or whatever. They are built by doing this, by doing things themselves. They are building confidence in their own ability to accomplish things. So by accomplishing your goals and these short-term goals, you are building confidence in yourself to believe that you can actually achieve this long-term goal. Does that make sense? So you are building up belief in yourself. It's called self-efficacy, that confidence in yourself to be able to do something. So if you have low self-esteem when it comes to schoolwork, don't be discouraged, okay? Maybe you're coming back to school after a long time away and you're totally freaking out. You're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Set micro goals, okay? So show yourself that you can accomplish certain things, okay? So maybe you did 1 chapter of required reading last week. Great. This week, do 2 chapters of the required reading. So set these micro goals that you can accomplish to be able to build confidence in yourself. And then when you finish that, celebrate big. Give yourself a reward. You know, it's important to celebrate your achievements to continue to build that confidence to continue on. Okay, so A is aim high. Set challenging goals. B is believe in yourself, develop self-efficacy. And then C is care and commit. Motivation matters. How much do you care about your goal? That's really important. Intrinsic motivation, that is the motivation that comes from inside of you, is crucial to accomplishing your goals. You want to finish this degree because that's what you want to do. It's not because someone else is telling you this is what you need to do. This is something that comes from inside of you. And often that intrinsic motivation comes from the Holy Spirit that is motivating you and saying, no, this is the call that I have for you. And this, you need to continue on and stay steadfast, stay steady on this race to continue forward and accomplish your goals. So commitment means that you're going to put in the effort needed in order to successfully reach your goal, right? When you want something, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it, right? So when you fall in love, for example, you will do anything for that person, right? Especially the very beginning. You're just going to do whatever it takes, right? Because you love that person and you want to express that love for them. And it's really the same with your goals in your life. When you really want something, you're going to pursue it. It's going to develop motivation inside of you to pursue that goal. And desire and love is a really powerful motivator. You don't want to be motivated by shame or fear or any of those things, but this determination and this reminder that God's call on your life is present, and his love is going to continue to push you towards success. Okay, so care and commit, motivation matters. Stay motivated. And then the next thing is specify and self-reflect. Monitoring your progress is really important. Okay, so vague goals like I'm gonna try harder, they don't actually help you to achieve success. Goals need to be specific and they need to be measurable. Okay, so they need to be created in such a way that you know when you've achieved them, right? I will try harder. How do you measure that kind of harder effort? Like that, you don't know when you've really tried harder, right? You have to be specific about that. So a great specific goal would be, I want to make an A in this class. So in order to do that, what do you need to do? You need to be sure that you turn in all your assignments on time and that they're done according to the specifications given by the instructor. You need to do the reading and take notes. Okay, so these are micro goals or measurements of your progress to make sure that you're staying on track to accomplish your goal. So not only do you need to make your goals specific, but you need to monitor your progress, okay? So by looking at how you're achieving your micro goals, you can then determine what kind of progress you're making towards your bigger goals, okay? And you know what? If you fall behind or if you miss something, you just figure out a way to course correct, okay? Don't give up on your goal altogether. If you're on a road trip and you miss a turn, you're not going to just turn around and go home, right? Like you're not just going to quit and give up. You're going to allow the GPS to do their rerouting thing, and then you figure out the new course and you get to your destination. Okay, so if you miss a deadline or you make a B or a C or even a D or an F, don't give up. Okay, just reroute, course correct, and you can figure out another way to accomplish your goal. Okay, so that's the ABCs of goal setting. Aim high, believe in yourself, care and commit, and then specify and self-reflect. Okay, so you can monitor your progress. Okay, so we've talked about identifying your priorities. We've talked about setting goals. Now, how do we do that, right? How do I actually in real life accomplish those goals? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about scheduling time to reach your goals. Okay, so I would recommend, we won't have time to do this on the webinar, but I would recommend if you want to figure out and evaluate how you're using your time, you can do an audit of how you spend your time by keeping a time log for 3 days. And we actually do this as an assignment in my class. You keep track of what you do every single hour. And then you look at that and you ask yourself, does this use of time align with my priorities? Are my priorities reflected in how I use my schedule? And if you are, sleeping for 4 hours and watching Netflix for 5, you might want to reevaluate your priorities at that point, right? Like Netflix probably wasn't a big rock that you wrote down, right? Like probably not, but sleep and health is probably a priority, right? So you want to evaluate your use of time. Okay, so if you need to readjust how you spend your time, here are some tips, okay, on how you can do that. So the first thing is to schedule every hour. Now, this kind of seems intense, and this is kind of like this can be a training wheel too to help you to figure out how to use your time the best way. So it may seem like overkill at first, but it can be a really helpful tool, right? So, and you may realize as you do that, you actually have a lot more time than you think, right? Or if you're doing this and maybe you have a full-time job and a family, maybe you're a pastor, maybe you're taking on your studies on top of this, this will also help you to evaluate, okay, how much time do I really have to dedicate to my studies? Do I need to do part-time to be successful based on my current obligations? So scheduling every hour is a really good exercise for looking at how much time you have, okay? And then making the most use of of all the time in your day, right? Okay, so the next thing is to schedule your big rocks first. You want to put your priorities in there. So you want to put in, your time that you spend with the Lord. You want to put in exercise first. You want to put in date night with your spouse first. Those are the priorities that you want to put in. You also want to put in your studies. This is going to be my study block of time. So that will help you to make sure that those priorities are getting scheduled in every day, okay? Because the reality is we all have a finite amount of time, right? We can't make more time for something. Whoever can figure out how to make time would be a millionaire, right? It's like you take the time to do something. You want to prioritize that time, okay? So put in your big rocks first, and then everything else you fill in around that, okay? And there's a cool tool that I found. It's actually from another school, but it's a time calculator to help you to identify, based on the hours that you have in a week, you put in those big priorities, and it will help you to see how much time you have available for each of those items. So you can take a look at that after the workshop if you want to spend some time doing that. You can plug in, how much time do I really have for these things, and that time calculator will be helpful, okay? And then the third thing is be specific, right? So just like you created specific goals, be specific with what you want to accomplish within your schedule. So you can block off study time, like 2 hours of study time, right? But you could be more effective by blocking off an hour for your assigned reading or an hour to prepare for a quiz, okay? So think about those items that you have to accomplish for your courses, and then schedule specific time to accomplish those items. That way you're making sure everything gets done, okay? And then the last thing is identify your time wasters. Everybody has these, right? Everybody has these things that just eat up your time for good or for worse. And oftentimes it's this little device right here, right? It's your phone, it's Netflix, it's YouTube, it's TikTok, it's, any number of those things that just eat up your time. So identifying and naming those and putting limits around those things will help you to make sure you are keeping focused on your big rocks and what's most important, because usually those time wasters, they're like the sand in the jar. They can fit around the big rocks, but they shouldn't become those big rocks, right? Distraction is the number one enemy of deep work. Okay, so if you are constantly being interrupted by these different time wasters, you're not going to be productive in your schedule, right? So you want to name those so that you have that clearly in your mind. You've identified what wastes the most time. Okay, so let me go back here and we can just do a quick review of the 3 things that we talked about. So to plan for a successful semester, you're going to want to identify your priorities. What are your big rocks? And then second, you're going to want to set goals. Think about how to put those priorities into action and using the ABCs of goal setting to help you identify or to set some solid goals, and then schedule time to align with those goals. And if you follow this process, I am confident you are going to have a great semester. Thanks, guys.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Student Success Center's academic workshops. We are so excited to present you with more and more workshops that are applicable to you as a student. We go over various topics such as writing skills, learning style, time management, and then we'll also typically have a workshop over mental health as well. So you will hear more about our workshops via your student email. So always check that student email and on the various TKU social media pages. So it takes about a week for us to upload all of our videos. You can access them through Blackboard and the new student orientation on the student success tab, and also just check your student email. Again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to the next workshop.